Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Sources say cross-border firing has reportedly led to the death of Pakistani soldiers following rising tensions over the terror attack in India's Pahalgam. Meanwhile, India's Home Minister Amit Shah is set to chair a meeting on the next steps following the horrific terrorist attack. Meanwhile, the US State Department calls for the perpetrators of the Pahalgam terror attack to be brought to justice, as French President Emmanuel Macron says his nation stands firmly with India. A British minister has called on UK politicians to support India's actions against terror. US envoy Steve Witkoff is meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin today, focusing on a peace deal in the war in Ukraine. US President Donald Trump has told Putin to stop after a deadly missile strike on Kyiv killed 12 people. Israeli military action has reportedly intensified with at least 44 killed in recent strikes in Gaza, according to local media. Meanwhile, Israeli has admitted that its troops killed a UN worker in March, having previously denied responsibility. Amid ongoing trade tensions following Donald Trump's sweeping tariff action, the French Foreign Minister says a deal with the EU is a long way off, while China has insisted talks have not yet begun, though Trump disagrees with his statements. However, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has confirmed that a trade deal with India is very close. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has reportedly moved a Venezuelan man to Texas for possible deportation, despite a court order blocking his removal. Meanwhile, a judge has ordered the return of a second deportee from El Salvador. Donald Trump is reportedly poised to offer Saudi Arabia over $100 billion in an arms package in a move to normalise ties between the kingdom and Israel. Reuters reports suggest that defence company executives are considering travelling to the region. Thousands of members of the public are queuing to pay their respects to Pope Francis in the Vatican, a day before the funeral for the late pontiff takes place. Francis will become the first pope in nearly a century to be buried outside of the Vatican. Starting this hour in the latest development following the terrorist attack that killed 26 tourists in Pahalgam, India. The Indian Union Home Minister Amit Shah will chair a crucial meeting regarding the Indus Waters Treaty with Pakistan. The discussion will focus on the technical aspects of implementing the recently suspended treaty. Pakistan has threatened that any attempt to divert water from the Indus rivers will be seen as an act of war. In a strong response, houses of the two local terrorists, Adil Tokar and Asif Shaikh, who were involved in the attack, have been demolished. A valley-wide crackdown on terrorists has begun, with an encounter taking place in Bandipora. According to sources, top Lashkar-e-Toiba commander Atlaf Lali was killed in the encounter. Lali held a senior leadership position within LET, making him a high-value target for the forces. Sources also claim that heavy cross-border shelling and firing took place along the line of control. Reportedly, at least 4 Pakistani soldiers were killed in Lipa Valley of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in the retaliatory action of the Indian Army. In a related development, Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi has arrived in Srinagar today to review the security situation. Meanwhile, Pakistan has increased the deployment of its army on the international border and the line of control. It has also increased the number of soldiers on the border adjoining Jammu and Kashmir. Well, joining us live is Brian Thomas, a correspondent with NewsX and NewsX World, who is joining us from Srinagar. Brian, thank you very much for being here with us. What can you tell us about the place where you're joining us from?
Well, joining from Bijbehara here. You can see these visuals also, where a house of a militant called Adil Thokar, who is a suspected Lashkar-e-Toiba operative in Bijbehara, have been blown up using explosives, and apparently his alleged involvement also surfaced in connection with the Baisara Pelgam terror attack, and this also comes hours after the residence of another key LET terrorist, Asif Sheikh alias Asif Fuiji, was demolished in Tral and also in South Kashmir. He is also believed to be one of the main conspirators behind the deadly Pelgam attack that led several injured and once his involvement was confirmed through initial leads. But yes, definitely you can see the remains of the house, and this shows these visuals also of how this entire place, this entire house looks and remains after the possible raise that happened in this very location. Yes.
Brian, given the fact that tensions are escalating between India and Pakistan, what is the consensus for people on the ground who are closer to the border in Jammu and Kashmir? Can you tell us about some sentiments that you've heard from locals?
Well, definitely the locals were clearly saying that yes, the tourism is clearly affected, and it has been a big hit for the tourism itself, and they had the entire locals of Kashmir are coming and condemning this barbaric attack that had happened. But yes, definitely Indian Army has become very vigilant, and they are doing everything they can in their possibility to eliminate the terrorists, because the Prime Minister himself, said that he would track, they will identify and eliminate the terror groups also that was behind the barbaric Pahalgam that had happened. Yes.
Yes, Brian, absolutely. I want to finish off by speaking to you about the Indus Water Treaty. Of course, this meeting with Home Minister Amit Shah is expected to take place later today. What more can you tell us about this treaty?
Well, definitely, the treaty, the Indus Water Treaty was suspended by India, and it was one of the major 5 key concerns also that India flagged at one point of time. But just yesterday in a high-level meeting that happened and said, yes, the SARC visa would be, nullified. Pakistani nationals staying in India would have to return in 2 days, 48 hours. And yes, a high-level meeting is going to be scheduled by Amit Shah today. That is importantly going to happen in a while now. Yes.
Brian, Thomas, thank you very much for joining us live from the scene of a house which has been destroyed. Reportedly, that house belonged to one of the terrorists who took part in the attack. Joining us now to discuss further developments is Major General Shashi Astana, a former infantry, global and senior defence expert. Thank you very much for joining us, Major General Astana. I want to look at the reports that we've had of firing, cross-border firing. We've heard that potentially 4 Pakistani soldiers have been killed. Is this a sign of escalations that might come and potentially lead to further conflict?
See, Pakistan, having sponsored this dastardly terror attack, is nervous, and therefore they have escalated on the LC as well. They started the escalatory firing on line of control. From their point of view, they are trying to give a message that we are ready, and any action by India, we will be responding. But the fact is that firstly, this is their nervousness. Secondly, that goes to our advantage once they start firing, because we know that their markets are crashing. They don't have sufficient money. They don't have sufficient ammunition. They are already battling BLA and TTP on the western borders. And therefore, if the LC firing starts, as has been the case, and some of the soldiers of Pakistan have been killed as well, then certainly it requires money, it requires ammunition expenditure, and it requires replenishment of ammunition. Also, more ammunition they spend, lesser they go as far as their reserves are concerned, and they do not have sufficient money to handle that crisis, ammunition crisis as well. So India is very well prepared. If they propose to escalate LC firing, so be it. and India is responding in kind, and maybe with the much, shall I say, pointed targets as well. Also, there is tremendous amount of nervousness the other side as well. Listening to your commentary, we are also taking a fair amount of actions on own side of LC. Own side of LC, because there are collaborators, there are sleeper cells, and the terrorists who have been recruited by LET and are operating and who keep coming and going, keep getting infiltrated, take action and go back to Pakistan. Such terrorists also have to be deterred, and therefore burning of these houses of the terrorists is basically a deterrent. Similarly, I am sure the agencies as well as the security forces would be involved in firstly picking up who were the collaborators for this terror attack, and those collaborators will also be taken to task almost at the same level as the terrorists are being taken to task. So these are some of the responses based on your question.
Yes, Major General Astana, sorry to cut you off there. I want to look at this meeting that's going to take place after a letter was sent to Pakistan saying that the Indus Water Treaty was being put in abeyance with immediate effect. Now, Pakistan have responded on this matter and said that if it is implemented, it would be an act of war. Looking at the rhetoric that Pakistan are following, how could this further escalate tensions?
See, they are saying that it will be an act of war. As far as India is concerned, the terror attack is also an act of war, and it is a cross-border attack. Similarly, the LC firing in technical terms is also an act of war. The moment the ordnance, that is the shells exchange and go to the other side, it is an act of war. So act of war, reference to act of war doesn't change what India has to do, and India is quite determined as far as this Indus Water Treaty is concerned, because firstly they were getting much more water than their share, and secondly the fact is that Pakistan military is the spontaneous head of the terror. They have done this terror attack. Their army chief spoke, and what he spoke was executed exactly in the manner in which he spoke. So India has no doubts, and therefore, as far as India is concerned, this Indus Water Treaty has been held in abeyance to tell the people of Pakistan that the kind of military, if they better control their military, otherwise they will have problems as far as their water needs are concerned. That's one part of it. Secondly, as far as the treaty is concerned, let me also be a little practical about it. I don't think there will be much of difference in water availability in Pakistan for the short term, because even to block water, even if, let's say hypothetically, if there is a intention of that kind, because we have not abrogated it, we have only held it in abeyance. So that will also take time, because there is an infrastructure required for that as well. But what could happen is that India may announce some of the projects which may not be very comfortable to Pakistan, and those projects may perhaps may create a little bit more nervousness on the other side. As we know that Pakistan, one of the major source of their income is agriculture. A major source of employment is agriculture, and agriculture is dependent on water. This equation should have been understood by their military chief, because Pakistan military claims to be the rulers of the country. For 50% of the period, they have ruled directly, and for remaining 50% of the period, they have been ruling indirectly. So this equation, that there are a tremendous amount of dependencies on India, should have been known before they start promoting the terror activities against India. So I think India this time is not, the response is swift, the response is immediate,
yes,
and the response is in multi-domain. warfare.
Yes, Major General Astana, sorry again to cut you off. We are running short of time. We're talking about these diplomatic tensions, diplomatic relations worsening, but I do want to, of course, bring it back to what started this, and it is the terrorist attack in which terrorists have killed 26 innocent tourists, family members, loved ones, of course, going through a process of mourning, with these 4 terrorists still unknown where their location is and not reprimanded. What do you think the consensus is among the public in India, but also amongst the government in India around these terrorists and finding them?
Sentiments in India are very clear. There is an anger against the sponsors of terrorists and these terrorists. There is an urgency to locate these terrorists and eliminate them and give them the kind of justice. Certainly people want justice, and our security agencies are working very hard to get these terrorists and take them to their consequences, which they truly deserve. Now we know that the area around Pahalgam is thickly wooded. It does take some time, and we are also looking at a whole lot of collaborators. I'm sure somebody would have given them the information, and that is why they have remained protected so far. But it's a matter of time. We will certainly get them, and they will meet their fate as the entire public demands. The other response, as far as the public is concerned, let me tell you that the entire valley of Kashmir, every person in Kashmir stands solidly behind the government. They all condemn this attack. It is an attack on their livelihood, peace and prosperity, and it is being taken as such. And everybody is angry with Pakistan Army Chief's speech that Hindus and Muslims cannot stay together. This speech has riled everybody, including some of the peoples in Pakistan, although Pakistan may not be showing that too much because their media is also controlled. But then the fact is that there are Hindus who are staying in Pakistan as well. There are minorities in Pakistan, and a hate speech of this kind coming from army chief has riled everybody, whether in Pakistan or in India. And that not only the speech part of it, he has finally executed on ground as well in this terror attack. And the linkages are very clear. His speech, the timing of the visit, the timing of the event. Similarly, the other linkages has been the place selected. The place selected is very far from LOC. It's a tourist hotspot. A fair amount of recce would have been done. It's a very well planned operation. The terrorists had Pakistani weapons. They also had the American weapons, which were available.
Yes, Major General Astana, I'm very sorry to cut you off. We are unfortunately out of time. Thank you very much for your insights and your inputs. Reactions and support continue to pour in following the deadly terrorist attack that has killed 26 people in Pahalgam. British parliamentarian Bob Blackman has strongly condemned the attack. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Systematic murder of Hindu pilgrims in Pahalgam in India. The sad reality is that the terrorist group that is thought to be responsible for this, Lashkar-e-Taiba, these are a Pakistani organisation that deliberately targets innocent people in Jammu and Kashmir. Reassurance and support for the government of India in making sure that they apprehend these terrorists and make sure that those responsible for supporting them are also brought to justice. Understanding is that the Pakistani government and the Pakistani military have condoned these attacks. So I'm sure the leader will join with me in condemning absolutely these terrorist atrocities and also making sure that people who visit Jammu and Kashmir are held safely and do not have to suffer such incidents yet again.
Meanwhile, in a press briefing, the US State Department spokesperson reaffirmed the United States' unwavering support for India in the face of these tragic events. Additionally, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has received phone calls from several key world leaders, including Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and King Abdullah II of Jordan. All of them expressed their strong condemnation of the attack, offering their condolences and reaffirming their solidarity with India. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow is ready for a deal with Ukraine, though key details remain unresolved amid fresh strikes on Kyiv that killed at least 12 people. Lavrov defended the attacks, calling them targeted military-linked sites. Meanwhile, Trump criticised the Kremlin's actions on social media, urging Putin to stop. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce says both Russia and Ukraine must make concessions for peace, following Trump's remarks accusing Zelensky of blocking progress over Crimea. While US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin as peace talks between Russia and Ukraine continue. Let's hear what Donald Trump has said.
Like last night, I wasn't happy with it, and we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired, and I was not happy with it. That's what I...
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rushed back to Kyiv, cutting short his trip to South Africa. Zelensky says the missile that struck a Kyiv apartment block overnight, killing 12, was a North Korean-made KN-23 used by Russia. Ukraine's military believes Pyongyang has supplied Moscow with nearly 150 ballistic missiles, and it's now used in attacks across Ukraine. North Korea and Russia deny such transfers, but Ukraine says cooperation has surged since 2022. The strike has raised alarm not only in Europe but also in South Korea and across Asia over the growing North Korean military reach. In the latest developments, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says it's Russia and not Ukraine that must act to advance peace talks. Speaking at the White House after meeting President Trump, Rutte said Kyiv is playing ball and the next move lies with Moscow. His comments follow Trump's criticism of Ukraine as pressure builds on both sides to find a diplomatic path forward. Let's hear what Mark Rutte had to say.
On the table now, I think, where the Ukrainians are really playing ball, and I think the ball is clearly in the Russian court now.
Moving now to the Middle East, and at least 44 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip. Well, the Israel Defense Forces said it struck a command and control centre for Hamas and its ally Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Jabalia that was being used to plan attacks. Following this, the Hamas-run Civil Defence Agency said 12 more people were killed when a family home in Jabalia's Ard Halawa area was bombed and that others were believed to be missing under the rubble. Since the January ceasefire collapsed on March the 18th, Israeli attacks have killed more than 1,900 Palestinians, many of them civilians, according to the Gaza health authorities. While 59 Israelis taken hostage on October the 7th continue to remain with Hamas. The efforts by Arab mediators, Qatar and Egypt, backed by the United States, have so far failed to reconcile disputes between Israel and Hamas. Meanwhile, Israel's military has acknowledged that it killed a United Nations worker with tank fire in Gaza last month. The incident had taken place on March the 19th when a UN compound in Deir al-Balah was hit, resulting in the death of a UN employee. At the time, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, stated it had not targeted the location. According to the IDF, these early findings have been shared with the United Nations and a full report will be provided. Moving on now to global trade tensions, and India may become the first country to finalise a bilateral trade deal under Trump's new tariffs. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said talks with India are very close, crediting New Delhi's lower tariffs and minimal trade barriers for the progress. This comes after US Vice President J.D. Vance met with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in India. US President Donald Trump's trade deal efforts do, though, however, hit setbacks as a French minister said that an EU agreement was a long way off. Meanwhile, China denied talks have even started. Since January, Trump has imposed tariffs on several partners, including China, with a major 145% tariff hike. But Trump has a different stance on this. He said trade talks between the US and China are back on. He pushed back against Beijing's denial that any dialogue is happening. Trump has told reporters that they had a meeting this morning without identifying the participants. The talks come as tensions rise. Here is what Trump said.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China. And so I think you have Jeff, as usual.
Well, Trump also said he will meet several world leaders in Rome while travelling for Pope Francis's funeral. He said they all want to meet. Trade will be a key topic in those talks. Let's listen in.
Have meetings with other world leaders when you're in Rome?
Yes, I will.
Which leaders do you want to meet, sir?
Well, I'd like to meet them all. That would be nice. I'd like to take care of all of them, but we have many of them there, and they all want to meet. They want to meet about trade. And we are making some great inroads.
Meanwhile, in China, exporters are avoiding the local market due to weak demand and low margins. According to financial experts, South Korea and the US have completed their first round of trade talks, where they're aiming to finalise a deal before July's tariff pause ends. Meanwhile, Vietnam has raised bond sales by 30%, funding infrastructure and shielding its economy from the new US tariffs. Staying with Donald Trump, and according to reports, the United States is set to offer Saudi Arabia an arms deal exceeding $100 billion. The proposal is expected to be announced during US President Donald Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia in May. Top US defence contractors, including Lockheed Martin, Boeing and Northrop Grumman, will supply advanced weapon systems like transport aircraft, missiles and radar systems, according to the reports. However, Saudi Arabia will not receive Lockheed Martin's F-35 fighter jets, which are restricted to specific countries. This deal follows former President Joe Biden's failed attempt to secure a defence pact with Riyadh, which included terms on Israel and Chinese investments. The arms deal marks a shift in US-Saudi relations, with defence cooperation remaining key despite past tensions. Heading on now, and tens of thousands of mourners have queued for hours to pay their last respects to the pontiff, whose coffin will be closed this evening. According to the Vatican, over 128,000 people have already paid their respects to Pope Francis before final preparations today for his funeral. Many of the 50 heads of state and 10 monarchs will be attending the funeral, including US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and others expected to arrive in Rome tomorrow. Italian and Vatican authorities have placed the area around St. Peter's under tight security before the funeral, with drones blocked, snipers on roofs and fighter jets on standby. Today, Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Carmelengo who is running the Vatican's day-to-day affairs until a new pope is elected, will preside over the so-called rites of the sealing of the coffin. Heading over to North America, and President Trump's administration transferred a Venezuelan construction worker from Pennsylvania to Texas for potential deportation, despite a federal judge's order blocking his removal. Court records confirm the move occurred after the judge's ruling. The American Civil Liberties Union is representing him, and they argue that the government's actions violate due process. This case is part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to deport Venezuelan migrants it deems linked to criminal organizations. He was arrested in February for being accused of the ties to the criminal gang Tren de Aragua. His lawyers deny the allegations, but the Trump administration is pushing to deport him under the controversial Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Moving to South America now, and the health of Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro has worsened after intestinal surgery earlier this month. As per reports, the 70-year-old Bolsonaro remains in intensive care and will undergo new tests. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro was visited in hospital by a court official who delivered summons giving him 5 days to present his initial defence against coup charges in preparation for his trial. Bolsonaro has been ordered to stand trial after charges that he directed an alleged right-wing coup attempt after he lost the 2022 presidential election to the left-wing president Lula da Silva. Bolsonaro has been hoping to contest the presidential elections again in 2026 despite a current ban on running for office, but he risks a 40-year prison sentence if he's found guilty. That is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.